Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Two-Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, your host, tour guide, translator, raconteur, storyteller, news heckler. Thank you for being part of this. Interesting show tonight. We have a little bit of news we'll do at the top here. Some of it relates to an extraordinarily hours-long interview that Hunter Biden did with a podcaster, and he said some stuff that's causing waves. Now, some of you may not care what Hunter Biden says, and I have a little mixed feelings about the whole thing, but it is what people are talking about in my world. So take a listen, coming up soon. And then I'll run through the rest of the news today. We welcome your questions and comments. If you're on the Two-Way platform, please raise your hand and get in on the conversation. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, don't raise your hand and don't put smack in the chat. Think about peace, love, and understanding. And I would say peace, love, and understanding, not as a throwaway line, but as something that should animate how you approach the conversations here, particularly tonight, every night, but particularly tonight, because later in the program, we'll be joined by two guests with a deep interest in Iran. One is someone who's been here before, who is, I'd say, has a jaundiced attitude towards the government in Iran. Say that. Understate the case. And then the other is making his two-way debut is a gentleman who's a professor at the University of Tehran who's joining us at 1:30 in the morning from Iran. So I don't know. I don't have a comprehensive understanding or awareness of every piece of content that's produced daily. There's a lot out there, but I don't know that anybody's had an American who is got a jaundiced view of the regime with a person from Tehran who has a favorable view. I don't know whether that conversation has taken place ever in the last few years, or certainly since the recent conflict between the United States and Iran. I doubt it. And so I think it will be interesting and maybe path-breaking, and we'll welcome your questions on that too. I'm looking forward to it. Don't know exactly what we'll hear or what to expect, but we'll host that conversation in just a little bit. But first, let me run through some news. The news today mostly relates to Hunter Biden and a little bit of Jeffrey Epstein news, some Harvard Trump news, some Gaza news. Martin Luther King files were released today. It's been talked about for a while. Don't know what's in them yet, but we may learn that during this hour we spent together. A few other odds and ends, but I'll run through the news. And then love to take your questions. And then again, the back half of the program, we'll bring in our two guests and talk about Iran. I'm looking forward to that very much. Hunter Biden is on a press tour of sorts. I don't know whether he's thinking about it as the 1-year anniversary of his father giving up the Democratic nomination, but that's what it is. And in a previous interview, he made a little bit of news. Today, he made a lot of news, and most of it, I would say, is being critical of his fellow Democrats, critical of Donald Trump. But here he is. This is probably maybe the biggest news, if true. Says that the reason his father's debate performance was so bad was because he had taken an Ambien. This is Hunter Biden, number one, please.
Exactly what happened in that debate. He flew around the world, basically, and the mileage that he could have flown around the world 3 times.
Yeah.
He's 81 years old. He's tired as shit. They give him Ambien to be able to sleep. He gets up on the stage, and he looks like he's a deer in the headlights.
So I've not seen any reporting yet suggesting whether other people agree that his father was given Ambien, but if true, that would be not medical malpractice, but political malpractice if he wasn't used to taking Ambien. Now, I hope he wasn't used to taking it, because the White House, in releasing the prescription drugs the president took, didn't list Ambien. So that would have been not great. So we'll see what more we learn about that. I doubt that's the explanation, by the way, based on what I know, but we'll see. Now, the thing that's probably getting the most attention besides Ambien from this Hunter Biden interview is this screed he goes on criticizing, amongst others, George Clooney, David Axelrod, Anita Dunn, Jake Tapper, the Pod Save America bros, and James Carville. I don't know that this needs any more introduction than that. Here's Hunter Biden denouncing lots of people who tried to help his dad get elected president. Number two.
But fuck him. Fuck him. Fuck him and everybody around him.
This is
I don't have
Clooney.
to be fucking nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. Fucking George Clooney is not a fucking actor. He is a fucking I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. Fuck you. What do you have to do with fucking anything? Why do I have to fucking listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his fucking life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the fucking New York Times to me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 fucking years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of fucking David Axelrod. And David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior fucking speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who've been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. The Anita Dunns of the world, who's made $40, $50 million off the Democratic Party. They're all going to insert their judgment over a man who has figured out, unlike anybody else, how to get elected to the United States Senate over 7 times, how to pass more legislation than any president in history, how to have a better midterm election than anybody in history, and how to garner more votes than any president that has ever run. And they're going to replace their judgment for his.
Not to mention...
Who's Jake Tapper's audience? Jake Tapper...
My mom or something? I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
For real, though. I don't even think it's your mom anymore.
No,
because
no.
by the numbers, what influence does Jake Tapper have over anything? He has the smallest audience on cable news. And beyond that, I think that the book is right now on Amazon that he put out. I mean, his ratings just went to shit after he put the book out. You know, they did a 2-week infomercial for it. I mean, it was such a money grab, such a disservice to everybody that he serves with.
All right, lots there. And, I never read the chat, but I do glance at it occasionally to address some of what I saw in the chat during that F-bomb laden extraordinary presentation. The name of the podcaster is Andrew Callahan. Maybe I should have heard of him, but I confess I haven't. Andrew Callahan. Yes, for someone who put this in the chat, that is a lot what Joe Biden sounds like in private. Yes, that is in fact what Joe Biden sounds like father, like son, and not just the style of speaking, but I think Joe Biden has a pretty similar set of views for Hunter on some of those people. And I have to say, knowing some of the people Hunter just talked about, I can't disagree with everything he said there. There was maybe more wisdom than we normally hear from Hunter Biden on that. All right, a little bit more, because I know some people find this compelling. And again, raise your hand if you want to talk about Hunter. Here's Hunter Biden making the case, many Democrats do, that a lot of people who came to this country legally perform valuable jobs that otherwise would not necessarily be performed and that need to be performed. Here's number 3, please.
I'm wondering, am I going to be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. Fuck you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your fucking table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your fucking garden? Who do you think is here by the fucking sheer fucking just grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance? And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the fucking criminals?
So I've always said it takes a particular talent to take that particular Anglo-Saxon word and use it as a noun, a verb, an adverb, I think a preposition at one point. Very talented use of the word. In any event, that's the Hunter stuff. There's a little bit more, but it's a 3-hour interview. We're not going to play much more. Let me just run through a few other things. Hunter, Epstein, number 5, please. The New York Times, after trying to keep the story alive over the weekend with some quasi-investigative pieces. This is the conventional wisdom now, I would say, in the dominant media. How Trump deflected MAGA's wrath over Epstein, at least for now, attributing the deflection to both the backlash to the Wall Street Journal story and the promised to release some of the grand jury transcripts, even though no one I know thinks there'll be much in there. Here's another thing that happened today in the Epstein matter. Number 6, please. The White House banned the Wall Street Journal's news reporters from being in the pool on the president's upcoming trip to Scotland. The media, of course, does not like that. And here is Hakeem Jeffries. This is number 7, talking yet again, as he has most days of late, about Donald Trump and his responsibility on the Epstein matter. Hakeem Jeffries, number 7, please.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. House Democrats spent last week trying to force votes to release records related to Jeffrey Epstein, and you have said that you support that movement. Why are Democrats just looking at this and pushing for this right now and not really during the Biden administration?
I support transparency in terms of the American people. The far right, Donald Trump, right-wing conspiracy theorists and others are the ones who have put this Jeffrey Epstein thing in the public domain. Let's be clear about that. No one looking at the facts disputes that. This isn't anything that any of us as House Democrats have been focused on ever in terms of trying to fan the flames of what may or may not happen. But once it has broken into the public domain, and there's a clear desire on behalf of the American people to get more information, then the right thing to do is to present the facts and the evidence to the American people so that they can make an informed decision.
Hearing in Boston today, a federal judge on the Trump-Harvard matter. No ruling from the bench, but the reporters have a general sense that the judge is inclined towards Harvard. Number 9, please, or number 8, please. Judge, this is New York Times headline, judge challenges Trump administration on Harvard, in hearing on Harvard funding in courtroom. A lawyer for Harvard called the Trump administration's case against the school cooked up. And here is the president on Truth Social, number 9. Apparently he didn't think it went so well based on what he heard. Harvard case was just tried in Massachusetts before an Obama-appointed judge. She's a total disaster, which I say even before hearing her ruling. Blah, blah, blah. The president says they'll have to appeal. So you can't always tell how a judge is going to rule based on how they talk in the court, but everybody seems to think the same thing. All right. Number 10, please. Continues to be unrest in Gaza, and the Israelis continue to face questions over Israeli soldiers shooting Palestinians near food aid sites. Shootings, devastation, hunger. Israel fails to address Gaza's power vacuum. And this is a problem because the Israelis don't want Hamas in charge, but there's no obvious alternative, and it's leading to difficulties. Here is Caroline Levitt on Gaza today, number 11.
I think the president's message on this conflict we've seen in the Middle East taking place for far too long that has become quite brutal, especially in recent days. You've seen reports of more people dying. The president never likes to see that. He wants the killing to end, and he wants to negotiate a ceasefire in this region. He wants to see all of the hostages released from Gaza. That has been a top priority for this president. Within this 6 months, we have seen many of the hostages released, including the last living American hostage, Edon Alexander, which was a result of this administration's diplomatic efforts and approach to ending this conflict. And again, this is another conflict that the president inherited from the previous administration, who was so weak and incompetent. It led to so much chaos and death around the world, but this president is focused on solving it.
All right, and here's Bibi Netanyahu on the same matter, number 12, please.
In New York City, right? What's Zoran?
Yeah.
He's an anti-Semitic guy.
Yeah.
The highest, I think the highest population of Jews in New York City. How's that even possible?
Well, it's possible because a lot of people have been taken in by this nonsense. I mean, what? You want to defund the police? You want to have people go into stores and, rob them and be free? You think that really creates a good society? You want to crush all enterprise? You want to tax people to death? I mean, that's a one-term effort. But, sometimes you have to get mugged by reality to understand how stupid that is. So that's silly. But, sometimes folly overtakes human affairs for a while, but not for long, because reality steps in. So I'm obviously not happy with it, but I'm less concerned with it, because I think if we can speak the truth to the young people of America, they wise up pretty quickly.
All right, that was the wrong BB bite, but that was interesting in and of itself, talking about New York City mayor. Anyway, he said in another bite, he defended the Israeli efforts in Gaza. He said that Israelis send in food, Hamas steals it and sells the food, and then recruits killers. All right, this morning on the morning meeting, we showed you a bit of Scott Bessent talking about the Fed on CNBC, and I was struck by it. Seemed kind of like, it sounded like Ron Paul, a very stridently anti-Fed. Here's a replay of Scott Bessent on CNBC this morning, and then I'll explain to you why we're playing it again. Number 13, please.
Look, Joe, I think that what we need to do is examine the entire Federal Reserve institution and whether they have been successful. I'm speaking, actually, I'm going to be in the building this evening. There is a regulatory conference that begins tomorrow. I'm the keynote speaker tonight talking about regulation. The Fed as well deals with monetary policy, regulations, financial stability. And again, I think that we should think, has the organization succeeded in its mission? If this were the FAA and we were having this many mistakes, we would go back and look at why has this happened? I mean, look at as you said at the top of this broadcast, there was fear mongering over tariffs, and thus far we have seen very little, if any, inflation. We've had great inflation numbers. So, I think this idea of them not being able to break out of a certain mindset, all these PhDs over there, I don't know what they do. This is like universal basic income for, academic economists.
All right. So again, I hear different things about whether Scott Bessent will become head of the Fed and maybe get rid of some of those PhDs who doesn't know what they do. Most people I talk to in the know say if the president wants Bessent to do it, he'll do it, but that he's not clamoring to do it, and that he will, if it's not him, he will play a very large role in selecting the new chair of the Fed. So just moments ago, Scott Bessent tweeted, I read this tweet as maybe a little bit of an attempt to clarify what he said this morning, maybe take a little bit of the edge off of it. Today in a CNBC interview, I called for a review of the Federal Reserve. It is my belief that the central bank should conduct an exhaustive internal review of its non-monetary policy operations. Significant mission creep and institutional growth have taken the Fed into areas that potentially jeopardize the independence of its core monetary policy mission. As I've said many times, the Fed's conduct of monetary policy is a jewel box that should be walled off to preserve its independence. This independence is a cornerstone of continued U.S. economic growth and stability. And he goes on. However, this autonomy is threatened by persistent mandate creep into areas beyond its core mission, provoking justifiable criticism that unnecessarily casts a cloud over the Fed's valuable independence on monetary policy. While I have no knowledge or opinion on the legal basis for the massive building renovations being undertaken on Constitution Avenue, a review of the decision to undertake such a project by an institution reporting operating losses of more than $100 billion per year should be conducted. That's a big operating loss. The Fed does regular reviews of its monetary policy framework. I would urge Fed's leadership to similarly undertake, publish, and implement a comprehensive institutional review, of course, its entire mission to buttress its credibility. It will go a long way towards strengthening the Fed's credibility with the American people and its core mission of guiding our nation's monetary policy. It seems like language a little bit more highfalutin and not as maybe personal and derisive, but still posturing as an outsider, certainly, and as someone who, if he did become Fed chair, would be looking to reform at least some of what goes on there. All right. We're going to bring in your questions now, and you can ask about whatever you want, but particularly if you want to ask about some of the topics I covered in the news. And then after that, we'll take a little bit of a break, or not a break, but we'll transition, and we'll talk about We'll talk about Iran, and we'll bring in our two great guests. I'm looking forward to talking to them. But first, before your questions, a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor this week is Indeed. Hiring the right people quickly, of course, nothing more important than that. When it comes to hiring, all you need is Indeed. You stop struggling to get your job listings noticed. That's always a problem if you're out there advertising and nobody's responding. But with Indeed sponsored jobs, you are able to stand out quickly and hire fast. Sponsored job posts jump to the very top of the Indeed listings for all the relative candidates. You can reach them, reach all the people you want to reach faster. Makes a huge difference according to their data. Sponsored job posts directly on Indeed get 45% more of the applicants you are looking for than the non-sponsored ones. So there's no need to wait any longer. If you're in a hiring situation, you need to get folks quickly. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. Listeners and viewers here, well, you get you get $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility. Go to Indeed.com/two-way and claim your $75 credit for a sponsored job listing. Again, go to Indeed.com/two-way right now. It's a great way to support the program because everyone who goes there and claims that credit gets, they know we did it. So Indeed.com/two-way, terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed is all you need. All right, your questions now. We'll go to Dean in Ohio. Dean, welcome in. Tell folks what is on your mind. I hope it's about Hunter because I'm desperate to talk more about that, but whatever you want to talk about.
Really?
No, just
well,
kidding.
I am one.
Talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, I am wondering why he's making news today or why that came up. But no, my question, Mark, is more for you. First, love the show, love the platform. Been here for quite a while. I come to you as a 3-time Trump supporter, and but trying to lean into your creed of peace, love, and understanding. And after the 6 months that I've seen, which I consider a pretty successful first 6 months, and truly after I got this thought, truly after the 12-day war, after there was so much uncertainty on how the Iran issue was going to, I'll say, end for right now. And I was pleasantly surprised. And I thought the markets agreed. And I thought, surely we're going to get some of the never Trumpers on board and maybe some of the centrists to say, hey, maybe this is happening. Maybe this is good. And I was disappointed that people lean into their if they're a Democrat, they lean the Democrat. If they just go back to their corners. Yeah. And I truly am trying to lean into peace, love, and understanding. Mark, what are you hoping our role is as community members in this as we try to just break free from our tribal thinking? I'm wrestling with this.
Yeah. So this platform obviously has a strong point of view about that. It's not easy. The incentives in the current system are geared towards allowing the loudest and angriest voices on the national town square to have a disproportionate amount of influence. So there are 3 things I'd ask community members to do. One is to be part of this platform and be part of the conversation. Don't put smack in the chat. It's not a joke, a throwaway line. It's true. And to really listen and engage. And if somebody says something you don't agree with, rather than being angry and send me an email saying you'll never watch again, say, well, that's interesting that there's someone in the country who is my fellow citizen who feels so strongly and says stuff that sounds absolutely ridiculous to me. I'm going to think about that. That'd be number 1. Number 2, be on the national town square, whether it's writing letters to the editor or speaking up at an event at your house of worship or a workplace or a community event, whatever it is. Be on there and be a voice. You don't have to be moderate or independent or centrist. You can be far left or far right, but be a voice for sharing ideas in a way that is consistent with peace, love, and understanding, and extending the presumption of grace for all. And then finally, do everything you can to create incentives in the system for voices like we have on this platform to be empowered, which means patronize places like this. Don't give money to extreme politicians. Again, I'm not saying don't give money to people on the far left or the far right if that's what you believe in, but don't give money to people who are loud, angry voices whose style of politics is to divide rather than to produce understanding. I think if everybody who shares our ethos does that, it'll make a huge difference because we are the majority in this country. We're just not the loud, angry voices that dominate public discourse.
I'll just say it makes it difficult when we spend so much time on what is interesting in the moment, a la the Epstein files. Not saying it's not important.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's less important than some other issues that get crowded out by, Hunter Biden today. You're going to get demonetized in your YouTube. I think those F-bombs came too early, but I understand that it's interesting. And I'm glad I've got a place to come to try to lean into that. I don't know how successful I am in some of my compadres, but we're trying here, and we're glad to be a part of the community. And appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Very grateful to you for being part of it. And our hope is that the YouTube algorithm will not be able to make that word out because of his thick Delaware accent. That's our only hope. Otherwise, you're right. We'll be heavily dinged. Thank you. Grateful to you for being part of Two-Way. All right, let's get some more folks in. Frank, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind.
I'm on the North Shore of Massachusetts, where the greenhead flies are biting at this moment, so we have to go leave them for them. So it's very pleasant, though. I am also concerned about the division of the country, and in my estimation, it's because of very powerful forces, and that, for example, conflict works in terms of getting interest from the citizens in a news story, and so I sort of see the world as ordinary people, corporations on top of that, government policy on top of that, and government, and then the politicians, and on top of the politicians, the so-called elites. And these elites, they have certain game plans, and possibly one of them is divide and conquer. Anyway, these are powerful forces, and I would like to see this platform do just a lot better. I'd like to see it scale and things like that. But I see very little motion in the country as a whole. So a couple of things that would be helpful would be if you had some programs on how to talk to people on another side. We suffer a lot here in this area from the hatred of the Republicans and Trump. And the Republicans also suffer from anger at what they perceive as the slights of the past and the injustices. And it would be very helpful to have some way to try to deal with it. Now, of course, maybe there is no way to deal with it, but at least begin the discussion as to what you can do to try to talk to somebody else who has an opposing point of view, because arguing with them certainly doesn't work. Anyway, so that's my comment, and I'd like to hear your response.
Well, I share your frustration. I agree with what you said, and I'm not sure I've got much more to say than I already said to Dean. But the reason I've been optimistic about addressing this for a long time is the majority of the country wants it addressed, and this is not like an engineering challenge of flying to Paris from New York in 4 minutes. This is just human beings changing their behavior. And what frustrates me is the attitude of saying nothing can be done. The cynicism. It's just a very fixable problem. We just need to change the incentives in the system. Most people in public life, there's some exceptions to this, obviously members of Congress, people who host shows. Most people I know this to be true, want it to be different. They're not interested in the status quo. Some of them are wedded to it because it's how they make their living. But they would change if the incentives changed. And I don't think it's very difficult to get the incentives to change, particularly around money, right? A lot of things are campaign contributions, book deals, television contracts. These are the things that fuel the power of the people in the loudest, angriest voices. We just need to change the system, and I don't think it's that hard, but it will take a concerted effort. And I share your frustration. Thank you, Frank. All right, let's get one more in, and then we're gonna switch over to Iran, which I'm super excited about. Welcome in, Joe. Unmute. Tell folks who don't know where you are what's on your mind.
Hey, Mark. Thanks again for having me on the show. Been called on a few times. I appreciate it. I'm in central New Jersey. I was actually going to talk about, I saw a couple snippets of the Megyn Kelly interview with Rahm Emanuel. And I think this came up during that panel discussion that you guys had afterwards. And then also you guys talked about it a little bit this morning, the whole Tulsi Gabbard releasing of the email. You know, and there's this debate of whether this is a big story. I know Matt Taibbi thinks that, Andy McCarthy thinks it's not. I'm not sure where I fall, but I do think the bigger issue for me behind it all, right, is the difference between interference and collusion, right? Because the narrative was initially about interference, but then it quickly, as far as the media was concerned, became collusion. And I think even after the Mueller report came out, most people still believed that Trump colluded with Russia. And I do think
when you say most people, what do you mean?
Well, I think there was a couple of polls, Reuters poll and a couple others that came out after the Mueller report that basically stated and I went before this program and I read a couple of snippets. I thought there was a more recent poll, but there were polls at the time that basically said even after Mueller exonerated Trump from collusion, that most people still believed that Trump colluded with Russia. And I think that to me is the issue, the fact that the narrative that was pushed by the media was not so much interference, but collusion. And that's what stuck with the American people. And so I think your optimism around discussion is warranted, but I do think it's going to be a real challenge for people that have picked corners to kind of get to the truth of the matter if the media, and I brought this point up before a couple of times, is so one-sided. Yeah. And I don't know that that's changed. And I think both Dean and Frank brought up the fact that, you know, there's been a lot of successes with the Trump administration. And certainly Trump is his own worst enemy sometimes when he opens his mouth. But the truth is that there's a lot of positive that's gone on, but the dominant media does not ever focus on that. Ever. Yeah. And that has to change. And I guess that's just that's just a comment, and I love this platform. I never look at the chat, but I noticed I did this evening, and there's still a lot of smack in the chat. And yes. There's a lot of smack here where we're coming together with peace, love, and understanding. Imagine the difficulty it's going to when you try to broaden the audience. Yeah, I hear you. And remember, our programming is not just political. We have our cancer show. We have more programs coming that aren't just political. But in the political programming realm, we've got to do better. We've got to build a bigger audience. We have to get people to get the ethos more. But it's an audience that reflects America, and there's going to be some smack. I resign myself to some amount of smack, unfortunately. Well, you should take pride in the fact that, Mark, you're doing your part. You and Dan and Sean and everybody, you're doing your part. Appreciate that. We are trying to do our part. I appreciate that. All right. Thank you all. Great questions and important topics. And I didn't get to answer a single Hunter question, which is probably good. All right. Let's bring in our two guests. Super excited to have them here and grateful to them both for making time. But particularly thankful to Professor Hassan Ahmadian. Professor, it's late at night where you are, or early in the morning. If you could unmute, that'd be awesome. And thank you for joining. Tell everybody how you became a professor and what you study, if you would. And again, grateful to you for staying up and making time.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me on this show. Well, I studied in Iran. I studied at the University of Tehran, where I now work. I went for a visiting fellowship at Harvard's Kennedy School, the Iran project there, back in 2018, 2019, and I got back and started working at the University of Tehran.
Okay. And Are you a supporter of the government of your country?
Well, as a professional, I basically try to understand it more than put myself in one camp or another.
Okay. Do you have freedom of speech where if the government does something you don't like, you're able to criticize them publicly?
We do. Actually, there's a lot of debates within Iran. There are very good podcasts that are similar to yours in Iran and Persian, and they raise all sorts of issues. Media brings up lots of, social, political, other issues with criticism, with lots of debates. You would be surprised, I think, if you listen to some of those.
Okay. And so you've lived all your life in Iran except when you studied in Massachusetts, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And how did you find your time in the United States?
Well, it was a new experience. You see, hearing about the United States from Iran is another story when you visit it. So you get to see the other side of the story.
Okay. Again, grateful to you for being here. Your first time here is not the first time on this program, on this platform for Behnam Ben Taleblu. Grateful for you to come back. You're an Iranian American, and you'll remind me, you were born where?
Yes, born and raised in the States.
Born and raised in the States. And how many times have you been to Iran?
Unfortunately, zero. There's a saying in Persian, I haven't gone, but I miss it already. It's just unfortunate that the government in Iran is fond of giving one-way tickets with field work in places like Evin prison, for example.
Right. Okay. We're going to talk about all these issues. And you have relatives who live there, correct?
Actually, no, very, very distant, because like many Iranian Americans and hyphenated Iranians, much fled post-1979.
Okay. I want to create a dialogue between you two, and I think the way I want to start is to play you a soundbite from the Iranian foreign minister who did an exclusive interview with Bret Baier on Fox this evening. Here he is talking about the Iran nuclear program. Play that, please.
Does Iran plan to reconstitute its enrichment program? Is it continuing now, or has the damage been so severe that it is all stopped?
It is now stopped because, yes, damages are serious and severe. But obviously, we cannot give up our enrichment because it is an achievement of our own scientists. And now, more than that, it is a question of national pride. Our enrichment is so dear to us. We are ready to engage into negotiation to make sure that our enrichment is only for peaceful purposes. We prefer a negotiated solution. Right. We are not ready to give up something which is now a matter of dignity for the Iranian people, a matter of national pride. Mm-hmm. So rest assured that we want to continue our enrichment, but of course we prefer a negotiated, solution for that. I think that was proved that there is no military option to destroy our nuclear program. Yes, facilities have been destroyed. They are severely destroyed, but the technology is there. Our nuclear program, our enrichment program is not something imported from outside that can be destroyed by bombings. It is developed by ourselves. It is an achievement by ourselves. The technology is there. The scientists are there. The people who have run these facilities are there. Buildings can be rebuilt. Facilities can be rebuilt. Machines can be, replaced because the technology is there. I think the recent attack proved that there is no military option for our nuclear program. But I tell you, there is a negotiated solution for our nuclear program. We have done it once in the past. We are ready to do it once again.
All right, so Professor, a lot to pick up on there. Here's what I want to ask you first. The foreign minister says there is no military purpose for Iran's enrichment program. Do you believe that? And if so, what makes you believe it? If not, what makes you believe that?
Well, I believe it because the Iranians gave up transparency back in 2015 when they signed the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which is the Iran nuclear deal. They basically opened up all Iran's nuclear infrastructure to IAEA inspections, and Iran's program became the most monitored program around the globe. But they, retreated some of their cooperation with the IAEA and ratcheted up their enrichment because of U.S. withdrawal from the JCPOA. And they said, we are ready to trade transparency once more for basically sanctions relief, which didn't happen. Instead of that, basically, after rounds of negotiations, Iran was bombed. So I think I believe them when they say we are ready to trade transparency for sanctions relief, but that didn't, fly. So
right, but you also believe them when they say that the purpose of the enrichment is not military. You believe that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Without that, why would they basically give that much of transparency in the nuclear deal?
Okay. Behnam, I'd love for you to respond to that and then ask the professor whatever you'd like.
Sure. And first of all, greetings, Mark. Greetings, Professor. Greetings to the listeners and viewers. Great to be back with you. Listen, I would just say a couple of quick things about enrichment and the foreign minister's comments there on Fox just recently that you played. The first is that the Islamic Republic of Iran resurrected a nuclear program that it initially junked in the very early 1980s during a total war with its neighbor, Iraq. I'm sure the professor knows anyone who studies Iran's foreign and security policy over the past 46 years has to seriously consider the weight and the impact of the 1988 Iran-Iraq war, which again, as the professor knows as someone who lives there, was very much a total war. In the middle of a total war, you don't go about creating science fair projects. The resurrection of the nuclear program back then and then into the late 80s, early 90s, the choice to go for enrichment, all of which was against this backdrop of a major 1988 war, which if you want to understand its impact, in American terms, it's like World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War all into one. So this regime is obsessed with deterrence because of the lessons of that war. Like most regimes, it is trying to survive, but it's trying to survive because it's promulgating an anti-American, anti-Israeli revolutionary message, trying to overturn the balance of power in the Middle East. Again, when it says death to America, it means it. When it says death to Israel, I believe it means it. It's put money, weight, national treasure, and much else behind those slogans over the past 4 decades. And I would just add this just to end. Which is, the Islamic Republic of Iran openly talks about in its press and officials that even the non-weaponized enrichment gives them military dividends. They talk about even just the enrichment capacity, where it is, how it is, the technical prowess they have as functioning as a form of deterrence for them. So even in the current state, the non-weaponized enriched uranium, they talk about having military dividends. So clearly, I would say there's a mismatch here, and I'd like to ask the professor if he sees the military utility of even this much enrichment. For example, Iran is the only country enriching to 60% purity that does not have nuclear naval propulsion, which is ostensibly one of the only needs for something enriched at this level.
All right, lots there, Professor. I'd love for you to engage on the last point and then anything else that was raised.
Well, I think basically a bit of context would be helpful here. The Iranians enriched to 20% and then 60% only after the United States pulled out of the nuclear deal. Before that, the IAEA's many announcements showed that Iran was basically observing its commitments. Now, there are lots of claims about the 90s, before 2003 specifically, by the United States, by Israel, and counterclaims by the Iranians. But the 2015 deal solved the PMD issue, which is a possible military dimension, suggesting that's part of the past, whatever happened. From now on, Iran will be observed, its program will be observed. Unfortunately, that didn't last because President Trump pulled out of it. And I think if that would have continued, the inspections would have been there in the country, in its facilities, and we wouldn't have been here where the country is attacked by Israel and the United States. Sorry to interrupt.
Do you object to the characterization that was made that Iran would like to see the destruction of Israel? Do you agree that that's the policy of the Iranian government, or do you object to that characterization?
Well, I think there's a lot of mismatch with reality when this claim is made. You hear lots of noises in Iran, but you hear the same in Israel. There's a balance between the two countries, and I think Iran was attacked by Israel, so it's really
you're right. You're
not
right.
clear to me.
Well, you're right. Or Israel attacked Iran, but I'm just gonna press you politely. Do you agree that the policy of your government, of the government where you live, is the destruction of Israel? That is the asserted goal of the Iranian government, to destroy Israel. Is that accurate
the
or not?
Supreme Leader, the Supreme Leader of this political system has said that occupation will end, and he equates Israeli current system with occupation and apartheid. That's destruction in the Iranian mentality, I think, the official mentality. It's not a destruction by weapons or nuclear bomb. That's what I get from it. I mean,
you're saying Israel's policy is from your point of view, is to destroy Iran, right? That's what you're saying?
Well, it attacked Iran, and it stated that it wants to change the regime there, and it called on Iranians to rise up against their regime. So it wanted to impose that on the Iranian.
Understood. I'm going to ask you one more time, just because I feel it's my obligation to. From explicit statements, it appears that the policy of the Iranian government is to destroy Israel. Is that from what you observe, what your government says? Is that the policy of Iran or not? Yes or no?
Well, I think I said I made it clear. What I hear from the Supreme Leader, I don't hear in the media, specifically the English media. He never said we will destroy Israel. He said apartheid and occupation will end in Palestine, which means the current system cannot be sustainable with the way it is treating Palestinians. That's the main rhetoric. So you can take from it destroying Israel, or you can take from it a call for justice in Palestine.
All right. There's so many issues here that we could get to. We have limited time. Behnam, I want you to respond to what he just said, the professor just said, and then I'm going to bring folks in the community in. Go ahead.
Sure. Just to avoid having it be a tit for tat, I actually have an article in The Atlantic in 2022. Folks can go read it. It's actually all about this. It traces the origins, the evolutions, the future of the Islamic Republic's anti-Israel policy, both with quotes from the former Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, and the current Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei. You guys can go check that out. It's from 2022 in The Atlantic. But just responding to one thing about context, the professor said, the Islamic Republic actually first went to 20% purity in 2010 and then later in Fordo in 2012. So well before there ever was a Trump administration and well before there ever was a 2015 nuclear deal. So the idea that the Islamic Republic inches forward in uranium enrichment just to check Western policy mistakes or missteps, however you want to characterize Donald Trump leaving the JCPOA in 2018, I would with immense respect say is inaccurate, because they started to do this and the IAEA monitored it in 2010 and 2012.
Professor, just quickly, agree, disagree, or don't know?
Yeah, well, I agree with that. 20% started before that, exactly when the United States started imposing sanctions on Iran. Building leverage through enhanced enrichment was the case then, and it became the case after Trump pulled out of the JCPOA.
Right. Okay. Again, we could go back and forth, but I do want to get the community in and sensitive to the clock. Here's what I would call an interested party. Hassan, welcome in. Tell folks your connection to Iran and then what's on your mind for our two guests.
And I have not been back in 46 years. My question to the professor is the following. The Supreme Leader, after being in a bunker for 12 days, came out and said that this was a great victory for Iran. Do you share that belief that this was a victory for Iran?
Great question. Professor.
Well, it's not that black and white. I think we can say with certainty that what Israel announced as objectives for this war did not happen. So that's the least the Iranians would be proud of achieving. And I think the Supreme Leader was, pointing to that. If there's a victory, that's the...
Which objectives weren't met in your view?
Doing away with Iran's ballistic missiles program, doing away with Iran's nuclear program, doing away with Iran's political regime.
Those are still intact?
I think so. It's not intact. Of course, the United States weighed in and attacked the nuclear facilities. But I think other than that, and it was done by the United States, not the Israelis. So I think the rest is basically there.
Okay. Do you want to follow up?
Yes. Can I ask a follow-up question? It's
Yes,
the
yes,
following.
sir.
For, basically the 46 years that the Islamic Republic has been in power, their position has been, as has been noted by Mr. Taleblu as well, not only the destruction of Israel, but the defense of Iran being based on the building up of Hamas, Hezbollah, Syria, Assad, etc., and building defenses in Iran. All of that over the course of the last 18 months since October 7th was essentially eliminated by Israel. Do you feel that the money that was expended by Iran over the course of the last 46 years was worth the effort, given what the outcome has been?
Professor, that's for you.
Is it for me?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So I think that also has a context. Israel had the ultimate deterrent of a nuclear arsenal. Iran doesn't. It built this network of alliance in the region to balance that off after the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq, because Iran felt so vulnerable and started building and enhancing its regional capabilities to balance the U.S. presence and also Israel.
Yes, sir.
So given what the state of circumstances are in Iran today, what do you believe? I would have expected that there would have been some degree of self-reflection by the Iranian regime at the top echelons in terms of determining how to move forward. Do you believe that there is going to be, as a consequence of this, any change in terms of the internal dynamics?
Well, I'm not sure to what extent I can expect that, or there's no info on that, but I'm sure the Islamic Republic will look at its failures in this war, specifically the failure in the face of the Israeli surprise attack and the killing of many commanders and many scientists within the country. It was a security failure. They have to look at it, and I suspect them to look at it.
Hassan, thank you. Grateful to you. Before we bring Haley in, Behnam, do you want to comment on any of that exchange?
No, I'll just, I won't weigh in just to keep it short and get as many questions in before the end of the hour.
Okay, thank you. Haley, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for our guests.
Haley, I'm from New York City. Full disclosure, I am Israeli American. I lived in Israel also about half my life. I want to be as transparent and respectful as possible. I don't know if this is a question anybody can really answer, but I do feel like this the attack that has happened on Iran was also because of October 7th and the participation that the IRGC has basically made to that attack. And if it wasn't for, I think, Iran, it wouldn't have happened. So I want to say, like, my basic question is how much of this attack was because of October 7th? How much is the IRGC admitting to backing or the financing of October 7th or anything like that? If there can be any, like, just a little bit more clarification on any connection between the IRGC and October 7th.
Okay, Professor, what do you know about that, and maybe the broader question of, it's widely thought in the West that Iranian proxies surround Israel in various countries. Is that true as well?
Well, I think there are two factors here. One is that Iran backed movements that it saw as balancers against Israel, resistance movements, as it called them.
Which movements?
And the second, basically Hamas, Hezbollah, and Ansar Allah in Yemen. But the other fact is that October 7th, was Iran aware of it? Did it call the shot? All indications suggest otherwise. So I don't really connect the two. But I mean, tracing it back, tracing the Israeli attack on Iran back to October 7th, one might go even deeper, say, well, the occupation has led to October 7th and then the atrocities that we're seeing now.
Behnam, do you want to follow up on that with a question for the professor or comment?
Sure. Actually, do you mind if I take a stab at Haley's question, if that's all right?
Please.
Sure. So there's two strands of reporting, one from Reuters and one from the Wall Street Journal in the fall, winter of 2021, with two drastically different theories. Reuters basically saying the upper echelons of the Islamic Republic were caught off guard by it. The Wall Street Journal one actually pointing to a coordination cell with Hamas and Hezbollah and the IRGC in Beirut that was quite cognizant of the plan. This is a problem when, tier one open source media cannot agree on the facts. But pushing aside from those two stories, I would say just a couple of things. I think without October 7, but also much more importantly, without the April and October military exchanges between Israel and Iran directly, which is when the 4+ decade shadow war came out of the shadows, I think the Israelis understand how much more of a conventional military advantage they had. And I think they saw they had a clearer shot, and I think that they took that. So I don't think it comes out of a vacuum, despite, Israelis saying for many years now that they would not permit the Islamic Republic to get a nuclear weapon. I think timing and opportunity and strategy played a pretty key role here in it. And I would just say one thing with respect to that first exchange in April, when the Israelis struck that facility that later on they discovered was a diplomatic facility in Damascus that had several IRGC folks in it. In some of the bios that the Islamic Republic's official media printed out in the month of April, in the month of that strike, they said that one individual, I think an IRGC Brigadier General, Mr. Zahedi, was killed. In the bio of Mr. Zahedi, there was stuff about, command and control and support to the militants that carried out the October 7 terror attack. So there are hints, perhaps it's more status, perhaps it's more security, but when you have a regime that believes and says the things that it does, these things will slip out. But I don't think you get the cycle of violence that ended with the 12-day war without the April and the October attacks, and I don't think you get those without the October 7 attack.
Thank you for that. Haley, thank you. Professor, what did you come to Harvard to study? What topic or subject did you come to study?
Well, I was a visiting fellow at the Iran project at Kennedy, the Belfer Center. I basically conducted research.
Okay, was there a particular topic though that you came to study?
Yeah, well, I focus on Iran's foreign policy and its regional policy and the rationale behind all of what it's doing in the region. And so I conducted researches and interviews, and it was a good group of people focusing on Iran's regional policy there. That working with them actually was very much helpful to me.
Okay, and what impressions did you come away from your time in America that were different from what you thought before you came?
Well, I thought your basically policy circles are way more informed than ours on the region because of U.S. involvement in Afghanistan and Iraq and close connections with Israel, with the GCC countries. But it was surprising to me, the bubble thing that I learned about there, I felt it really. I mean, there were very much knowledgeable people there about the region, but majority really didn't have much insight in the details and, day-to-day politics and international relations within the region and the, bottom lines in what the policies mean for Iran, for Saudi Arabia, or other countries in the region.
It's rare for Americans to hear from someone in Tehran directly. Or someone who's been in the United States and Iran. So for those Americans who for decades now and more intensely recently have anger towards Iran or hostility or hostility towards the government at least, what would you say to Americans who are looking to understand the current state of relations between our two countries?
I think one main suggestion would be to put yourself on the shoes of the other. As I try always to do, to look at the two sides of the story and come up with a more sort of balanced analysis of what is happening, putting yourself in why Iran is doing it, whether it is the official Iran or day-to-day life in Iran, where are people facing, is very important in understanding why the country is acting as it is acting, and why there is atrocity between it, for instance, and Israel. What are the root causes of that? Why it is unfolding the way it is? You can pinpoint, you can say that Iran is supporting terrorists against Israel, but there are lots of intricacies there to be understood. And I think understanding those would help everyone.
Okay. Behnam, last word to you, and anything you'd like to say on this topic of trying to create greater understanding between the two countries.
Sure. I would just say one thing. I think the supreme leader of Iran actually said this, I think, in 2014 or 2015. Forgive me for not having the date handy, but he said, America and Iran can have peace, but America and the Islamic Republic of Iran can't. And I think that difference on the nature of the regime, the type of the government, no American, I think, fundamentally has problems with Iranian power in the Middle East or empowered Iranians, but they have lots of power, lots of problems with the way that power is actually articulated, on the auspices under which it's articulated. The professor mentioned the importance of putting yourselves in the other person's shoes. I think it's imperative for us to put ourselves in the shoes of the 90+ million Iranians, many of whom have consistently chanted in anti-regime protest after protest from 2009, saying, not Gaza, not Lebanon, my life only for Iran. You have right now a very minority interpretation at the helm in Tehran actually doing the arming, training, funding of the groups that got Iran roped into October 7 and the April and October attacks, and ultimately ended with a 12-day war. So I think now indeed is the time to put yourself in other people's shoes and serious reflection as to how we all got here.
Okay. We're at time and a little bit over time, and I could go on a great deal longer, but we won't. Professor, again, very grateful to you for staying up and for joining us. And I hope you'll come back regularly, particularly when there's moments of hostility between our countries, to help maybe lower voices. Grateful to you. And Ben, I'm so grateful to you for coming back, and grateful to you both for a civil conversation, which I hope everybody got something out of. So grateful to you both for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And grateful to you all for being part of the community. We'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow for the morning meeting. Sean, Dan, and I will be here, and new episode of Next Up, which I'll tell you about in the morning as well. Have a good evening, everybody.